So for my leadership project, I interviewed Jessi Snow, the Teen Services Team Leader at the Boston Public Library. Miss Snow is based out of the Copley Square branch of the BPL, which is the main branch, but she oversees 16 services departments, both the staff and budgeting, as well as overseeing the programming and collection management at the Copley branch. She mentioned that 90% of her job isn't actually about books, it's about programming, so they have breakdancing competitions, poetry slams, tarot card readings, career days, all sorts of things. It's about managing the computer lab, making sure the technology is working, that it's as up to date as possible, and managing the video game room in Teen Central. Again, making sure everything's running smoothly, making sure that they are stocked with up-to-date but appropriate video games for the kids to play. And then, of course, just budgeting and managing her staff are huge things as well. The major thing that she's done in her time as the Teen Services Team Leader was the redesign of Copley's Teen Central, which you can see right here. So that involved creating a more open space, adding the video game room, updating the computer lab. All the furniture you can see there and the stacks, which you can't see, are all on wheels, so they can all be moved out of the way for programming. So that was a huge undertaking and something that she really spearheaded. When talking to Miss Snow, what she really highlighted again and again is that to her, the main thing that a good leader needs is good communication skills. She really just kept coming back to how important it is to be communicating with your employees and to be communicating with the community and the patrons who are using your space. She definitely adheres to servant leadership theory, and that she's not only trying to serve her employees and make sure they have the resources they need to thrive and succeed, but serving the teens that are using Teen Central, making sure that they are getting what they want out of the space and that it's not just a Teen Central that she designed based on what she thinks teens want. So she really focuses on this idea of the golden circle, which we talked about this semester. She's always thinking about why she works in libraries and why she works with teens in particular. So for Miss Snow, she really feels that teens need a separate space in libraries, that they shouldn't be kind of squished in either with the adults or with the youth services. They need their own space with materials that speak to them, programming that speaks to them, a space that's set up for their needs. And because she's really focused on that's the reason why she does this, she's been able to create a really amazing Teen Central space at Copley that sees truly hundreds of kids every day. And she does have really open channels of communication with the teenage patrons, as do her employees. The teens are really open to talking to them, not just about what they need from the library, but about what's going on in their own lives and different challenges they're facing in school or at home. So it's a really open, trusting environment, and I think a big reason for that is that Miss Snow and her staff have created an area that is just for teens. So the teens know that when they go in there, these people are there for them, and they are there because they want them to be successful and happy. She mentioned in terms of challenges that staffing and budgeting are huge issues. I think that's true of most libraries, and that technology is a huge issue, kind of going along with budgeting, that things are moving so quickly. She specifically mentioned the 3D printer that they have, that the library just doesn't have the budget to stay up to date with the new models. So they have a 3D printer, but it's a little old and sometimes it's a little wonky. So finding that balance between staying up to date but managing your budget is something that she said she's specifically been struggling over the past couple years. And I was able to shadow Miss Snow right after interviewing her. So first I saw her coordinating with her employees, two full-time, one part-time, to make sure everything was in place before the after-school rush. They do have some kids coming in and out during the day because the Copley branch is near to open campus schools, but the majority of the kids come in after school, so they just were making sure that everyone knew who was going to be in charge of the front desk and in charge of checking out laptops, tablets, all that, who was going to be in charge of floating, making sure the kids were cleaning up after themselves, not getting into too much trouble. And this was really a conversation. It wasn't just Miss Snow saying, you do this, you do that. It was everyone talking about what other things they had to do that day and who it made sense to do what. I then watched her and one of her employees lead an event with Planned Parenthood that was an STI Jeopardy event. So they helped to get it set up, but then they kind of stepped back so that it could just be the young Planned Parenthood employees and the teens, which I think helped the teens to feel a little bit more comfortable, and they were super enthusiastic with the game and really comfortable asking all sorts of different questions to get answers that they wanted out of these Planned Parenthood employees. So this really showed that Miss Snow and her staff are really dedicated to focusing on services that the teenagers need and not worrying so much about, is this going to ruffle some adult feathers? And then finally, I watched her try to deal with the 3D printer that I mentioned before. She had some trouble with it. She acknowledged that this was not her strong area. She found an employee who's better with the technology that she is and asked them for help. And that was great to see, because if you're going to be a good leader, you need to know what your weaknesses are and what your staff members' strengths are. And if you can do that, not only do you have a more productive work environment, but you have a happier work environment. So overall, observing her really showed that she does practice what she preaches. She doesn't just say communication is important, she really does communicate with her staff. She doesn't just say that she wants to make sure the teens are getting what they need out of this space. She really has worked hard to make sure that, both in terms of entertainment value, like the video game room, and in terms of resources, like music making software in the computer lab that allows teens who are interested in that to pursue that more professionally, or in terms of programming like Planned Parenthood, who's actually giving teens resources that help them, even if they aren't kind of traditional library resources, quote unquote. In terms of myself, the self-inventory results that I got from the different tests we took kind of just mostly reinforced things that I already knew about myself. I work well with others. I'm approachable. That was a really great result to get, because as someone that is baseline a little more reserved and anxious, I've worked really hard over the past 5 years to kind of force myself to be more approachable. So it was good to see that reflected here, because I do think I've gotten much better about that. That I'm focused on societal benefit, which I think is pretty common for anyone who wants to work in a library. I'm a strong communicator, high EQ. Then on the negative side, that I take on too much responsibility, that I can get caught between my idealism and my practicality, which can make it hard for me to commit to making decisions. And that as an INJF, I'm prone to emotional overload and then withdrawing when I'm overloaded, which I know is a real weakness I have. Seeing it here was a good reminder of that, because that's something that I'm always trying to work on, and I know that I need to work on more. In terms of my personal leadership philosophy, I think in a library setting, what's most important to me is promoting diversity and promoting open, honest communication. I want to work to maintain that approachability that I have worked so hard to develop, and to make sure that I continue to be approachable. And kind of going off of that, I don't want to overwhelm myself with responsibility, because that results in me withdrawing, which is the opposite of being approachable. And I want to really work to foster a library environment that encourages staff to challenge their internal biases. I know in our textbook, one thing that Prentice mentioned was that we all have internal biases, and that we tend to, move towards the status quo that we're familiar with. So we need to be cognizant of those biases so that we can challenge them, fight against them, try to create a library environment that, both in terms of content and in terms of staff, is not just mostly white women. And I don't think my leadership philosophy necessarily changed, but I think this course helped me to just be able to express it a little bit better, and also to realize the importance of reminding myself why I specifically want to work with teens, and to remind myself that you do need to tweak your leadership style when you're dealing with the teens versus when you're dealing with adults, that you need to be aware of who you're specifically dealing with. For my personal leadership development plan, I'm going to focus on being less cautious as a leader, more comfortable making those big decisions and, sticking by them. I want to continue to work on delegating responsibility so that I can avoid burnout. I think I need to just keep reminding myself that delegating is a good thing because it makes my life easier, but it also shows employees, like, I trust you, I know you can do this, you're good at your job, and I believe that. So it's good for everyone. Again, really the theme of this whole presentation is communication is important. I think I'm a pretty good communicator, but I think we can all always improve. So just to keep reminding myself that open, honest communication is number one. And then I want to make sure I'm utilizing resources like We Need Diverse Books, which I already knew about, but Miss Snow mentioned when I talked to her, and the Urban Libraries Council, which we talked about in this class. Those are both great resources to make sure that I'm challenging myself and my biases and not just, saying that I'm doing that and then not actually doing anything about it. And then, seeing a strong library leader in person really just hit home how important some of the specific things we learned about this semester are, that acknowledging your weaknesses doesn't make you look like a bad leader. It makes you look like a strong leader who, knows what you're good at and knows what your employees are good at and utilizes both those things to make sure that you have actual success. That communication is just really, again, number one, the best way to create a good working environment, and that you need to be listening to your patrons and actually trying to give them what they ask for, not just hearing it and then letting it float away. And teen services is a newer concept, so it was useful to watch Miss Snow and, again, see how sometimes you need to tweak things a little bit when you're communicating with teenagers because they're a little more emotional, they're going through a lot in their lives, and you need to make sure that you're being very empathetic but still honest and not patronizing with them. And I've worked for some pretty toxic leaders over my life, so getting to watch Miss Snow in this really awesome teen center library area, just communicating well with her staff, with the patrons, seeing all the really great resources that she's established there, it was just really awesome for me to be able to observe someone who seems to be such a strong leader so that I can keep that in mind and try to emulate her while I've also learned from some of the not so great leaders that I've worked for in my life.